I've gotten a couple questions lately about how I do SEO, how I do keyword research, how I find underserved topics. And I think that we get stuck into finding the perfect niche. And sometimes we go way too broad or we go way too small. And so I'm going to kind of walk you through how I pick a niche, how I do some keyword research to validate that niche, and then how I find the actual topics that I'm going to write about. So we're going to use a bunch of different free programs. I don't use hardly anything that's paid. So I'm going to walk you through all the different programs I use so you can pretty much recreate this on your own. Now, I happen to like the food niche, so we're going to stay in that area, but you can apply this to any broad topic that you like. I realized after I recorded this video that I should have added at the beginning that the type of keyword research and niche validation and basically just the my thought process on this is going to be best for informational type sites. That's mainly sites that are focused on ad revenue, not necessarily affiliate revenue. And the person who's going to use this type of strategy probably has multiple sites. And the reason I say that is because if you're only planning on doing one site, I would suggest doing something that you are at least in or have a huge interest in. So that way you're not going to get bored. The type of research that I'm doing is I don't necessarily have to have an interest or really be in the topic because I'm just going for informational and I just need more information than the average person. So if somebody is looking up these questions, I can just be a couple steps ahead of them in the journey as far as knowing information. I don't have to be an expert. So go ahead and watch through the whole video. And I know it's long and I apologize. But then if you have more questions, just go ahead and drop me a comment or tell me if this is something that you might want to try in the future. Now, I like to start all of my keyword research and really validating the niche that I want to be in with Google Trends. It's completely free. So let's start with quick breads. That's going to be your banana bread, zucchini bread. Think of a wider topic that has lots of little topics. Okay, let's do potatoes because there's a zillion different variety of potatoes. Let's do onions. There's lots of different varieties of onions. And let's do spices. And how about some herbs? Cooking herbs. Anyway, so let's take a look at what these trends are. Now, this is set for the past day, but we're going to take it all the way out to 5 years. And with these 5 different food related topics, we can see that by far the red, which is potatoes, that's going to be the highest searched one. All the other ones are really, really low, which doesn't, this is kind of up to you. I'm going to go with the higher one, even though I can see it's very, very seasonal and it looks like it pops right about Thanksgiving of every year. So I was just going in knowing that this would be pretty seasonal. So, but out of those 5 different options, those are all a topic. I mean, a quick bread is a topic and it's pretty niche down, but there's tons of smaller topics within quick breads. There's tons of different types of potatoes, types of onions, types of spices, types of herbs. So you see where I'm going? We're going to go with a very small topic, but something that has multiple layers to it. So now let's go over to ChatGPT. Okay, so ChatGPT, you can have just a free account and it'll work for this. I happen to pay the $20 a month. I'm not even sure yet if that's quite worth it, to be honest, but for the keyword research portion, this is what I'm going to do. Okay, so we're going to go with potatoes. So let's start with give me a list of the top 25 types of potatoes that are sold in the US. No offense to other countries, but we're kind of aiming for the US here because that's who our target market is. Okay, so we see here it's giving me 5 different like brand names. So let's take this even smaller. Let's go, what are the top 5 most popular potatoes in the US. Okay, so we got russet, Yukon Gold, red Pontiac, fingerling potatoes, red Bliss. Okay, so we got something to work with here. So all we're doing is just think of potatoes is our niche, okay? And then we are looking to find a bunch of different topic silos. And we want to have a good amount of topic silos. And for potatoes, this could be simply ways to prepare potatoes, information about each type of potato. And for this one, I'm thinking it's probably we've got enough different varieties of potatoes that we could become the ultimate source on potatoes. So let's kind of follow the 5 most popular ones and see if we can find some good questions. So this is kind of step 2, but we're just kind of refining. With every program that we do, we're getting a little bit smaller and a little bit smaller, and we're going to eventually create a list of keywords, and then we'll determine if this has enough, because I really want a website that I could grow to 1,000 pages and not something that after 100 pages, I'm going to run out of keywords. So next, I think we should go over to Ask Socrates, Answer Socrates. I can't remember which one it is, but it's Socrates something. We'll see what it is. Hold on. Okay, so it is actually answersocrates.com. This is also another free program. So the first one on our list from ChatGPT was russet potatoes. So let's just do very broad. It's going to take a second. Okay, here we go. I see tons of questions here. Good for mashed potatoes, good for potato salad, for baking potatoes. How long? No refrigerator, what are potatoes good for? Let's see here. The where is, where, those get a little tricky because they're usually like, where do I buy? And that's not really where we're going with this. It's also, I mean, this is just a huge long list, and this is basically scraping the Google search bar. So some of this may actually be about russet potatoes, but sometimes you'll find real weird stuff. Oh, this is interesting. Look at the compared to russet potatoes versus Yukon Gold, russet potatoes versus Idaho, russet potatoes versus yellow. These are all really good. So, and then this is also good here. This is the alphabet soup method. If you look in the Google search bar, where you just type russet potatoes and then A, what comes up? B, what comes up? C, what comes up? So this is actually a whole lot more than I was thinking it was, but okay. So we download the CSV. Now, the next one, let's go. We had russet potatoes. Now we have Yukon Gold. Okay. Same thing. We're finding a lot of questions. So if you were to pull this up and you're not getting a lot of questions, you're either asking something super small that they may not have a lot of questions about, or it's just maybe not popular and it's not anything is auto populating. I would take a guess. Some people say that it has to be asked like 100 times a month for it to show up in the Google auto suggest. I'm going to say it could be as low as 10, but if I'm seeing a question and it is in the autocomplete, I'm going to assume there is some search volume. And if you try to determine search volume using paid tools like, what is it, Moz, SEMrush, Ahrefs, they're all off. And some of them say there's 0 to 10, and I have a website that is full of tons of those, and they get 300 to 400 searches a month. So I'm just telling you, I wouldn't go by a paid tool. I would go more by your brain, and we're going to get into how do we find that these are underserved. So give me just a second. So let's say I went through and downloaded the CSVs on the top 5. That would have been the russet, the Yukon Gold, the red Pontiac, the fingerling potatoes, and the red Bliss. I actually only did 2 of them just to show you what I mean. So now that we have those CSVs, we're going to open up a brand new Google Sheets. This is also a free program, and I am addicted to Google Sheets. So we're going to go under File, Import, and then Upload. Okay. I like to do replace current sheet. Okay. Import. So now you see this. Now, really, these first two columns don't really make much of a difference. They're just kind of showing you which section they were in. I'm really mainly concerned with this, the C. Okay. Now, some of these are going to be almost like half of a question, and they're not going to be good, but I'm going to be looking more towards stuff like this. Are russet potatoes good for mashed potatoes? Good for potato salad? Good for roasting? I don't honestly care if it's good for dogs because that's not quite where I'm going. Somebody who has a pet website is probably going to answer that. And so let's see here. It did bring up some stuff about red potatoes, but we're just focusing on this first one. So sometimes we really just get a little crazy and we try to expand too quick. I want to keep as focused as I can. So let's see here. Can russet potatoes be frozen? So there's a whole bunch of really good ones in here. So what I'm going to do is I am going to start at the top and go, okay, is russet potatoes good for mashed potatoes? All right, so I'm going to copy that. And now I'm going to go over to my favorite friend, Google. So let's go there. Okay, so we've got Google open and we're going to flip back and forth between our list. And this is where you're going to really understand search intent and exactly what people are expecting. Okay, so are russet potatoes good for mashed potatoes? So we search. Okay, so we're seeing some big hitters right off the bat. Food Network, Bon Appetit, Tasting Table, The Kitchen. These are all some pretty big hitters. So, and there are some recipes in here, but so, okay. I'm not a big fan of that one. It just, there wasn't any holes that I was seeing. So we'll just keep it as a yellow. Are russet potatoes good for potato salad? Now, I could have gone here for baking, but that was really kind of generic. Baking what? Like, are you doing just baked potatoes? Like, it's kind of an open-ended question. You don't necessarily know. So let's see here. A recipe for potato salad. And the first one is a recipe for potato salad. So I'm finding that the answer to this question may be buried in this recipe, but somebody who's asking this may not actually want a recipe. They just might want to know, hey, I have russet potatoes. Can I make potato salad? So let's see here. It's just the recipe. There's literally nothing about the russet potato and why it's good or if it's good. It just gives me a recipe. So that doesn't really tell me much. So I'm thinking this one has possibility. Best potatoes for potato salad. Let's see here. Okay. So use waxy, use starchy, use. Let's kind of be just russet. Okay. It mentions the word russets like 10 times. But this isn't specific about that one potato. It's more about all potatoes. So you see what I mean? It answers the question, but it's not very, very specific. So I'm going to say that this one actually is a good possibility. Now let's keep going. Trying to find a really good one. And sometimes those are kind of odd questions. Okay, is russet potatoes the same as Idaho? I don't know. Let's find out. Russet potatoes, otherwise known as an Idaho potato. Okay, so that's something good to know. So we know that russet is slash the same as an Idaho potato. So I've got a little just literal, piece of paper there, and I'm just kind of writing down any words that I go for. So let's see here. What are Idaho? What's different between Idaho and russet? A russet potato is not an Idaho potato. A russet potato is one of the varieties of a Idaho grown potatoes. See, that's interesting to know. But this one's definitely been answered as well. So let's keep going. Okay, these are obviously looking for some type of recipe where it says russet potatoes and chicken and onions and carrots. I'm not really wanting to do that. Let's see here. Apparently, I cannot talk and read at the same time, so good to know. So I'm noticing that there's not, like at the beginning, there was a lot of questions, but they just weren't great questions. So I'm starting to think that this may not be a perfect niche, but we're just going to keep going. You can also boil. Okay. How to boil potatoes. How to cook russet potatoes in boiling water. How to boil potatoes. Okay. I'm starting to think that if this is going to be the website we want to go with, it's going to probably have to be video focused, where you're going to be doing how to on this. And that's totally fine if you want to go that way, but I'm looking for more informational content. So I'm just not sure this is where we want to go. Now, it's a good idea to keep doing this, even if the first option doesn't necessarily hit gold. So now we're going to move on to the Yukon Gold potatoes, because I wasn't really finding anything jumping out at me. So let's do, are Yukon Gold potatoes good for French fries? Let's see. Oh, Quora. We like that. Okay, crispy oven bacon. So that's an actual recipe. Homemade French fries. Okay, so this one is actually what I would call a slam dunk. I would definitely write this. And it's not just because Quora was the top, it's because the only thing coming back was recipes. And this is a question. Someone's trying to find out information. They're not ready to commit to making French fries. They just want to know if Yukon Gold would be good for French fries. So we got to keep in mind what somebody's search intent is. Let's go to this one. Is it good for potato salad? Okay. Going back to that Food Network, it's a general one. How to make the best potato, how to choose. Okay, so that one's actually getting a little bit closer. What are the best potatoes? So if I have Yukon Gold potatoes at my house and I am curious if they're going to be good for potato salad, I don't want a list of all the potatoes that you can use for a potato salad. I just want to know, are Yukon Gold ones potato? And I probably want to see an article that goes over the pros and cons of using Yukon Gold in potato salad. So I'm going to call this one another good one to do. So let's see if we can find any more. Are Yukon Good Gold for mashing? Okay, let's see. Okay, perfect mashed potatoes. It mentions it, but Yukon Gold. We're getting a lot of recipes. Doesn't actually tell me anything. So, oh, what are the best potatoes for mashing? Gold mashed potatoes. So to me, this is a sign that this is a question that is not answered directly. It's I love recipe websites because someone somewhere thought it was a brilliant idea to stuff a ton of, I want to call it useless information, but it is helpful. Basically, how they came up with the recipe, where they came up with the recipe, and then every weird fact they can think about any ingredient that's in it. And so sometimes the answer to the question is in one sentence, and that's it. And it's not the main focal point. It's just basically making their recipe page longer so you can eventually get to the recipe. And I'm finding you can actually beat out food blogs and big food blogs just by actually answering the question rather than just being filler before a recipe. So keep that in mind. Now, I'm trying not to make this video like 2 hours long. So normally, if this was really something I was trying to determine, I would go through each and every single one of these. And I just do like red, definitely not going to do it. Yellow's a maybe. And then green, definitely room for potential there. Now, I'm also going to show you 2 different programs that I use here and there, but sometimes you can find some really nice stuff. But you kind of have to play with it. So this is the free SEO tool from Ahrefs. So let's see here. Let's do Yukon Gold Potato. Let's see here. Okay. So we're looking for recipes, baked, calories, nutrition, substitute for Yukon Gold Potato is pretty good. So I'm just going to pick out a few that kind of jump out at me. A lot of times, if it's a decent list, like this is going on for a while, so I can just copy the whole thing because I don't know yet what I want and what I don't. Copy the whole thing, and we'll just pop it into another page. Okay. And I can play with that and sort and go ahead and put each one of these into Google. Now, here's something new that I recently figured out. So, Keyword Chef is a really cool tool, and I love their wild card and their questions. But I figured out that sometimes I don't like the answers that they give me. And let me show you. Okay, let's go Yukon Gold. It really helps if you spell it correctly. I noticed that. Okay, so here we go. Yukon Gold Potato. I just want questions. Okay. Aha. So we got a whole bunch of questions here. Now, normally you would go and, oh, wow, a whole bunch of questions. So you would go and then hit get keywords. Well, that's going to cost 326 credits. And honestly, I don't really care what Keyword Chef says is a good keyword or not. I just want the questions. So we're going to go over here, add another sheet, and then pop it in there. So you see what I mean? This drives me crazy. It happens every time. All right, here we go. So I don't necessarily care what their answer is. I'm just looking for the questions. Now, here's something that I do want to show you. You see this question right here where it says, are Yukon Gold potatoes good for diabetics? Diabetics is a disease, a condition, and that's going to get very YMYL. So I can tell you right now, even if this is not answered well, I'm not touching it. Now, when it comes to your money or your life, you can do those topics, and I've done them. It will just take 2 to 3 times longer, and I'm just not interested at this point in taking that long. So, are Yukon Gold inflammatory? That sounds kind of condition based. I'm not going to go for it. Let's see here. Are Yukon Gold the same as golden potatoes? Are Yukon Gold the same as yellow potatoes? These are all lots of questions, and I will go through here one at a time and do that. Now, if you see this one, it says Australia, UK. Those aren't areas that I am targeting, so I'm just going to not even worry about them. Can you eat Yukon Gold skin potato? I gotta look because that's a pretty specific question. Let's see here. Should you peel your potatoes? If you want to peel, opt in for Yukon Gold, which checks off the high stress. How to make the best Yukon Gold. This is actually a great question. How to decide whether or not to peel? Can you leave the skin on? Yeah, so I would totally write, a 750,000 word article on that. Sure, why not? So we'll mark that one green. And so I'm going to use all of these tools and I'm going to create a list. Okay. And then I might have 20 sheets down here that has just lists and lists and lists of questions. And then what I'm going to do, and this isn't anything difficult by any means. So we're going to say that first topic cluster is going to be Yukon Gold potatoes. And then I am going to take all those questions that we looked at that were good. Okay. Oh, I lost my sheet. And I'm just going to keep listing them down here. And sometimes I'll throw another column in here and I'll number it. And we just want to go 1, 2, unlock. Yeah. I'm not always very technically savvy, but so anywho, we're just going to go through until I can find at least 30. I aim for 25 to 30 questions because I just want to test, does this Yukon Gold potato go somewhere? Now, I might find 1,000 questions or 100 questions, but I'm not going to write 100 articles on a topic that's not verified. But I will, with the help of AI, write 25 and see how Google likes it and see, because honestly, you could do 25 articles in a couple days and get them up there. So this is how I do my keyword research, and I just keep doing it over and over and over again. And here's the thing, can you can save time or you can save money. And right now, I am more willing to spend my time than my money. So I've got to be able to get smart and use my brain and really look and see what's out there. And I am so focused on user intent. If I am the person asking this question, what exactly is it that I want? What's going to be helpful to me? And I find stuff like this all the time where people are asking questions and it just gives them recipes. Well, that doesn't answer their question. It doesn't tell them why something is good for this or why you shouldn't use this. So that's how I find the underserved topics. So let me know. Try this out. I mean, it doesn't take any time. It doesn't really take any money. I've spent 30 minutes and I validated a niche. I found some good questions. And if I keep going, this may take 2 hours, but I could have the basis of a website completely planned out in an afternoon. Okay, so I'm really sorry that this video ended up being as long as it is, but I'm still learning and trying to figure out how to share my screen, how to show you what I mean. And of course, it always takes longer when I have somebody looking over my shoulder. So, anyhow, I hope this gives you a good idea of some free tools out there. And really, this is just something that I would sit down if I had a couple hours without kids or, anyone calling me. Just honestly, I do this sometimes before my kids are even awake or late at night. And I just find questions, plug them into Google, keep going, keep going. And then I just color code. And then once I've gone through everything that's green in my chart, I move it over and I start trying to keep it into topics. So I would pick everything that's on this topic and I would try to find 25 good questions, really probably 30 questions. And then once I do that, then I would go to the next topic. So, for instance, the red Pontiac or the fingerling potatoes or the red bliss, and I would find 25 to 30 questions. And then what I would do is if I decide that this is going to be something that I'm going to do, I would start out with my first cluster, the Yukon Gold. I was finding a bunch of questions there. So let's say that's my first cluster. I would write those 25 questions. And each question I would do as a separate article if needed. Like if I find something that has 2 to 3 questions that's the same question, just worded differently, I would cluster those 3 together into one article and make sure I included each of those 3 different variations of the same question. So then I would write the article and interlink when I find it natural. And then at the end, I would write a pillar post that would be like the ultimate guide to Yukon Gold potatoes. And I would kind of touch onto each of those different articles so I could link out to them. And then that way I don't have any orphan pages. And even if you just did one topic cluster a month, before you know it, you could have a website with 150, 200 pages, and you would start to be able to see really quickly. I know people talk about the Google sandbox, but if you're going after underserved topics, I'm finding that there really isn't a Google sandbox because the newest website that I just started, it's 2 weeks in. Google has started to index it, has started to show it, it's starting to get clicks, and it's 2 weeks in. So where was the sandbox period? So that whole you've got to wait 3 months for Google to find you before it's even going to show you, before you're going to rank. No, I can rank within 2 weeks on a brand new domain, but you just have to go under underserved topics. Now, this doesn't mean that forever and ever I will go under underserved topics. Eventually, I will probably run out, and then I'll go one level higher, and I will go for topics that maybe have competition. And then hopefully by then I've hit enough underserved topics to become a topical authority on that subject that I can hit the bigger topics. And then once I finish those, I'll go up to the bigger ones. And really, if you find a topic that you can branch out into different segments, you could become like the ultimate source, the one website that you need all about potatoes or real car radios or you know I'm tripping over myself here, but if you're just going to do a website about Toyotas, you could do that and then you could cover all the different things. But I don't think that doing a website right now all about cars is so huge, you're going to get lost. It's kind of that like children's story where like you are the little tiny fish and you have to start in a little tiny pond. And then once you outgrow that pond, you can get bigger and bigger and your fish will get bigger and bigger. So that's kind of my way that I do this. So try it out. Tell me what you think. Tell me if you think I'm crazy. I don't know. But somehow this method has one site that's probably going to hit 25,000 page views a month. And I have a couple smaller ones that are starting to take off as well. So let me know what you think. And hey, go ahead and, subscribe and then you can see all my future videos. And maybe the more videos I make, they'll get better quality and I'll learn more stuff. Cause that's kind of the whole point of this is I'm learning new skills and getting to interact with all of you. So have a good day, y'all.